Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
We're back in Better Than Ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, like Jon Gruden and Kirk Herbstreit, both of whom will join us in this hour, back-to-back, always great fun. It's a particularly big day for us, Mike, because they've awarded the Nobel Prizes in chemistry, which is a day that we always look forward to with great eagerness.
We're going to tell you who won, the 3 people who won that and what they won it for, and break it down a little bit for you. I always, you know me, I'm a sponge for learning.
Yes. Particularly chemistry. I know
Without
you have a particular interest in that.
I love mixing things, and hopefully they explode.
Well, people have always said we have chemistry. And
well, there you go.
They could have given us the Nobel Prize.
I was just going to say, we're on our way out. What a great way to award us that right now for our chemistry.
They gave us that Hall of Fame thing. Could we not get – was it too much to ask for us to get the Nobel Prize for our chemistry?
Maybe we came in second. Do they have like a list of finishers and how they finished?
We lost in the wild card game,
Did we?
I think is what pretty much happened. We only got one game, and that was it. We had a 3-0 lead in the first inning, and that was all she wrote. And just very quickly on that, as John is ready to go here, with the Yankees coming from behind, they're down 3-0 in the first inning, 1/3 of an inning, Severino's out, places, everyone is worried, and they come back and win the game and all that. And then we started talking about the wild card loser. And LD tweets at me, Greeny, the play-in game is like the participation trophy. Stand by. No, it's not. The play-in game has served its purpose in baseball. Had it not been for the second wild card, there would have been nothing to pay attention to in the entire last month of the season in the American League, because the Yankees were so far ahead of all the other wild card contenders. That would have been it. And the race between the Yankees and the Red Sox in the American League East would have been basically meaningless. The advantage of being the division winner versus the wild card was almost nothing back before they added this. So it did serve its purpose. It is a regular season award is the wrong word.
Yeah.
It is a rule that was designed to make the regular season more meaningful. And you know me, I'm always in favor of that.
I agree. I absolutely think it made the regular season more meaningful. I agree with that. And so now, are we satisfied with one game playing? That's the next thing. Right now, I have no problem where we are because it's better to me than what it was. You can always keep improving, but I think they improved on making the regular season more actively enjoyable to watch.
Okay, so we will get back to all the baseball coming up in just a few minutes, but every week at this time, it's our pleasure to bring in Jon Gruden, and we always play him a little classic rock.
Yes.
And we know what his general favorites are, but there was only one artist that even received consideration on this day. There's a Tom Petty channel on Sirius XM I listened to all day yesterday.
I know you guys played a lot of that yesterday, and I was reading about that. Just horrible. Feel so awful for obviously Tom Petty's family and such, but boy, lost a great one.
Jon Gruden, a little Tom Petty for you this morning. How are you today?
Yeah, good morning, guys. That's a great call. He's one of Florida's finest, and we're going to miss him. We're playing Tom Petty round the clock here at the FFCA also. Good morning, guys.
Good morning. Yeah, I loved him. Yeah, we played Mike. We'll talk about him later. We talked about that a lot yesterday when you weren't here. And, John, of course, we talked a lot about your game Monday night with Kansas City and Washington. Now, let's start with the Chiefs. They're the last unbeaten standing in the NFL right now, and their quarterback, who – it almost feels as though when they write up the term game manager, which has turned into like a nasty thing to say about a quarterback, they put up a picture of Alex Smith. But you watch some of the plays he made to win that game, particularly that scramble right and that throw that he makes at the end to set up the winning field goal, and you find yourself saying, like, this year is he playing as more than that? As you watched him Monday and you've watched the tape of his early part of the season, what are you seeing in Alex Smith?
He's pretty much the same Alex Smith, I think, that you see every week. He did make some impact plays scrambling. There's no doubt about that. But if you check his history, he's run for a lot of yards in this league, created a lot of offense on his own. I think the thing you have to remember with him is he went to the 49ers when the 49ers were really bad. He hung in there with 7 straight different offensive coordinators, and he had that team on the brink of going to the Super Bowl. He had a lot to do with the team that went to the Super Bowl. I think they were 6-2-1. They went with a young quarterback, and he got traded to Kansas City. But he helped push the 49ers near the promised land, and then he went to Kansas City. They were 2-14. They were a bad team, and he's got them on the brink again of playoff football and championship football. All you can say about him is he's a winner, but he isn't spectacular enough for a lot of people, unfortunately.
One of the things that came up yesterday, I had Booger here, and I think it might have been Louis Riddick, when we're looking at Kansas City, and you say to yourself, when it gets to be cold outside, do they have enough classical wide receivers on the outside who on a 3rd and 7 are going to run a route that gets you the 8 yards that you need? Obviously, Tyreek Hill can make spectacular plays, and their primary receiving weapon is the tight end in Kelsey. Do they have enough talent, on pure traditional wide receiving talent on the outside, to be the best team in the AFC?
I think so. I mean, I look at the New England Patriots, who everybody picked to be the number 1 team in the AFC. Clearly, they have Gronkowski. The Chiefs have Kelsey. I guess it's Brandon Cooks. They have Tyreek Hill. They have a unique offense. This is an incredibly unique offense. It's hard to prepare for because you don't know what to put on a card and practice against. There's so much window dressing, so many exotic plays. Heck, they're running Jason Kelsey in the Wildcat as a quarterback on 3rd and 3 in a 17-17 game. Andy Reid is doing some things right now on offense, I think, that jazz it up, that help his receiving core. And to answer your question in a long roundabout way, I think they do.
We look at that division, and a lot of people think 3 can make the playoffs there. The Chiefs undefeated, Broncos 3-1, and the Raiders are 2-2 and lose their quarterback. So from the way you coached it and looking at what Jack Del Rio is going to do, it can be anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. Were you the type of coach, or does a coach need to kind of find the leaders of that team, the vets of that team? Do you talk with them individually or everybody as a team on, we know it's easy, next man up's just got to step in and do the job, but quarterback's usually a different position here. So how do you deal with that as a head coach to maybe find certain people on the team to try and talk to about this, or do you just leave it be?
Well, I have a face-to-face meeting with the team. No cell phones, no emails, no Snapchats or Twitters. Let's have a conversation as a team. I think when we won our Super Bowl, Mike, we lost Brad Johnson for 3 or 4 games, and we had to win 2 games with Rob Johnson. I think we started Sean King. You got to find a way to win. You have a defense, you have special teams, you have Marshawn Lynch, who I've heard about throughout the whole off season. You have 3 Pro Bowl linemen. Come on, you got to win a game. You got to find a way to win a football game. We have enough players. We got to rally around E.J. Manuel. Does everybody understand that? And hopefully everybody can rise to the occasion. That's what the great teams have to do, fight through adversity, and there's adversity right now in Oakland.
And the game you have this week, Minnesota at Chicago, is starting Mitch Trubisky, who's the 2nd pick of the draft, 13 starts in college. We all know the story, and a lot of the things we were talking about, John, if they were going to make that move, and I'm sure you would echo, is it can't all be about the quarterback who's playing in Glennon just playing poorly. You have to believe, and so again, with the coaching cap on, where does a Trubisky have to, what do you need to be seeing out of him in practice, in walkthrough, in the weight room, in film sessions to say, okay, our starter isn't playing that well, but I have to have confidence in this young kid to go in and not have his eyes too wide open?
You know, I think they probably have seen that in the preseason, probably in training camp. I'm sure internally they have seen that. He moved the team, Mike, in the preseason. I watched him carefully. He threw the ball down the field. He put points on the board. He's an athletic guy, and he made some audibles. I think offensive coordinator Dowell Loggins has had a lot of experience working with young quarterbacks, and I'm sure they're going to fast-track him, run some plays that he's comfortable with. The problem is, I think the strength of the Vikings is Mike Zimmer in this defense. It'll be a great challenge for him, but I know they want to get him off to a good start, and I'm excited for Trubisky. He's a great kid. He's an unknown. He only played 1 year at North Carolina, but the Chicago Bears, they need some positive energy from the quarterback position. It's been quite some time.
Mike and Mike, Jon Gruden with us again. That's the game Monday night, and the Bears will play it without Danny Trevathan. The announcement yesterday by Derek Brooks, who played for you, of course, John, all those years in Tampa, that the suspension of Trevathan reduced from 2 games to 1, but this will be the game that he missed. And Mike was saying earlier this morning, that hit, the specific hit that Trevathan made in that game on Thursday night was commonplace when he was playing. Booger McFarland said to me yesterday, we had a motto in Tampa, if it's wiggling, hit it.
Yeah.
And so that was the way the game was played. So, John, I'd like to get your perspective as one of the prominent voices in the game. Do you believe that was an actionable play? Is that a play, the way the game is played today, that was worthy of a suspension?
There's a lot of ways to look at this, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt. It was a vicious hit, but not to be politically correct. You're supposed to run to the ball. And we used to tell our receivers, if you want to run an inside breaking route and you want to fight for yardage after the catch, you better be careful, because these defensive players, they're on the hunt. I think some of these receivers that are running these quick screens and these inside breaking RPOs, they need to get down. Personally, I'm not blaming Davante Adams, but I think there's two ways to look at it. I've always coached energy, hustling, rushing to the pile. And if it is wiggling, you do hit it, because guys are fighting for yardage. And sometimes you got to give up the ball because of 1 inch. Inches matter. That's why they measure first down. That's why they have a crew down there with those chains. So I'm a little sensitive. I thought Trevathan made a great play. Obviously, what he's hitting, the surface, below the neck, all those things, I'm totally agreeing on. But I thought Trevathan made a heck of a play, and unfortunately, a man got hurt.
And I get what you're saying overall, because in this case, it was be tough for Davante Adams just to get down. He was kind of being held up. But to your point, overall, I get it. These guys running these routes and feel they have a whole lot of freedom in there because defenders getting penalized for it. Not to belabor this, but my point on this, and John, listen, I looked for hits like this all the time. To me, it wasn't so much that he hit a guy coming across the middle or a guy that was wiggling, which is perfectly legal to do. You know where we are in football. You're working with little leagues and high schools. You see it now. They want guys to keep their heads up. And he dropped his head down, and I think that more than anything else said, okay, we're going to have to do something here. If he did that same hit but led with his shoulder, even if it caught Davante in the head or lower, I don't think we'd be talking about any of this. So to me, I thought it was more directly related to that. Would you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm sure you're right. The crown of the helmet is the big discussion. Try to keep the helmet out of all tackling. And you've heard of Pete Carroll, the Seahawks, who brought rugby tackling into their training camp, and it's been effective for them in terms of safety and reducing penalties and all those things. I agree with 100%. Keep the crown, keep the helmet out of tackling, certainly as much as possible.
And another issue that I wonder from a head coaching standpoint, how you deal with the Chargers now. I'm playing in the stadium they're playing in, and more visiting fans instead of for the home team there. If you're a head coach for them or out there in a situation like that, and Anthony Lynn running that show now, do you talk about, is it the old us against the world mentality? How do you deal with that in this type of a situation where they're in transit?
That's a tough explanation, really. I think they knew what they were getting into when the season started. I always tried to have a contingency plan. I used to talk to the players a little bit about it. When things go wrong, let's not come unglued. Let's not go into this season with the intention that everything's going to be roses. I don't think they probably expected to be 0-4, but they knew they were going to play in a high school stadium. They knew they were going to have to move from San Diego to L.A. It was going to be inconvenient, probably strange and uncomfortable. But the bottom line is the only way they fix things is to win a football game. And their kicker has missed game-ending field goals twice. They're a good enough team with a good enough quarterback to get a win. That's the only thing we can focus on. We knew this was going to be uncomfortable to start with.
It's Jon Gruden again. A very interesting game coming up this Monday night. The Vikings and the Bears, and the debut of what the Bears hope will be their quarterback of the future in Mitch Trubisky. John, thank you so much. We'll see you in Chicago.
Thanks, John.
Okay, guys. Hey, have a good one.
Jon Gruden with us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. And just to circle it back to where the conversation began, you weren't here, Mike, yesterday to talk about Tom Petty, but I played his music all morning long. And again, there is a Tom Petty channel on Sirius XM that I listen to all day, and great stuff. They had Cameron Crowe was on there, who of course long before he was making movies was a music writer for Rolling Stone, and he was talking about unbelievable stories about Tom Petty in the 80s. It was great to listen to.
That's our wheelhouse. Tom Petty, that distinctive voice. Are you kidding me? And you read about others. I'm reading about other artists like John Mayer, who reasons why they wanted to cover his songs and such. And I mean, the guy was gold, absolute gold. It was stunning. It was my wife who told me when this all was going on. I thought, 66 years old. I mean, much too young. Just such a shame. But yeah, this is a guy that was part of the music I listened to growing up. He was right in the wheelhouse of it.
Yeah, he was great. I was so sad about that. And anyway, we knew John would like that one way or another. And then to sort of take it back to some of the conversation that we were having there with the football, I didn't get your take on Trubisky. It sounds to me like yours is relatively similar to the one that I had yesterday, which is I really hope this is more about the Bears deciding, you know what, he's ready, and we have an elongated break here, a week and a half, than it is Glennon is struggling, team is losing, coach is on the hot seat, all of those things. Because right now, developing the kid is the most important thing they can do.
I think it has to be a little bit of both. But I think one of the main thing is okay, we feel like there needs to be a quarterback change. Our quarterback is turning the ball over too much. Is the guy we want to put in ready? And by ready, we don't know if he's game ready. Is he done enough in practice, as I said, in walkthrough, in film sessions, to feel comfortable in what we saw in preseason? Because preseason, what he sees is going to be way different than the preseason. You have to have that comfort level. And if you can say, I'm not sure, then you shouldn't play him. Now, does it make your decision, how if you want to do something, you can talk yourself into anything and say, oh, yeah, I believe he's ready. I mean, that's something only John Fox and that coaching staff know, how ready that he is going to be. But it has to be partly that, because I agree with Herm, especially when you're talking about turnovers. A rookie can turn the ball over, so let him get in there and let him start playing. So I don't have a problem with this move at all. You had 10 days. So you had a little extra time to kind of breathe about the whole situation and then get into it and take over in the huddle. The guys who know more than anything else are going to be like that offensive line and that offense. They're either saying, okay, we see some things in this guy, or amongst themselves in their own individual meeting rooms, they're going to go, man, we're screwed. I mean, either way, it's still a rookie quarterback. So even though we're talking up Deshaun Watson's going to make mistakes. And Mitch Trubisky is going to make mistakes. But you have a guy, and I agree with Jon Gruden, you play to his strengths, you give him comfortable plays. Like, remember, we first saw Deshaun Watson, his first preseason play was a rollout. Yeah. A couple options, quick options, run it, throw it, get rid of it, whatever, but make it a little easier on him. But you're playing in the regular season as well. So you're not getting vanilla defenses. You're getting in Minnesota, you're getting a really good defense on how they want to play him. So a lot is going to fall on that offensive line to protect him, to hopefully get a running game going with the two-headed monster that they have and ease it up. That's where everybody else, what you do is everybody else feels a responsibility to pick it up more. When we were going through the season without Randall, we went through quarterback after quarterback. I know, because I obviously know the guys on offense, were saying we need to try and do more. On defense, we would be like, okay, we need to even pick it up for us. We already want to get a turnover. We already want to score when we get a turnover, but we need to really continue to emphasize that even more. We need to help out the situation. And that's where you are. Now, a lot of people will say, well, are the Bears good enough to do that? Well, that's not what players think. Players, every time they walk out onto the field, have the thought process that they have the ability to win the game. Every play, every game. That's how you're built. So you go in there thinking, okay, I really need to focus in on my job and get it done, and maybe even a little more to help out this young quarterback and give him some confidence. What you don't need, I mean, this is where we said no drops. I mean, you don't need drops. You talk about one of the best ways to help is to get a running game going, and that falls on the running back and the O-line and the receivers. Make the catches he throws. They may not all be right where they need to be. Help the young kid out. Make those catches. He may not be able to throw you open right now or put it right where you want it. You got to step up and do a little more for him.
Here's the other place where Deshaun Watson was so much more prepared, however. Not only did he just play more games.
Oh, yeah.
And against better competition. Sure. We saw him twice against Alabama national championship scenarios. But remember, we're now dealing in a place where that guy played 2 full playoff runs, right? Yep. They had a month between the regular season and then the college football playoff 2 years ago. Clemson beat Oklahoma and killed them, right? So he dealt with all of the media, all of the build-up to that, dealing with the hype of it, and then playing Alabama and playing a huge game and losing a heartbreaker, and then coming back another season. Went through a down start of last year, remember? All the quotes, oh, he's not having fun and all that kind of stuff, and put it together again, had a huge second half, obliterated Ohio State, and then beats Alabama. So this guy was so prepared. Mitchell Trubisky played 1 year at North Carolina.
Yeah.
So to just say, well, Watson's doing it, so let's put him out there.
No.
It can't
that's
be a terrible reason to be doing this.
And I don't believe it is. I mean, I'm going to give John Fox and the staff a little more credit than that and say, you know what, man, this guy's going to be a deer in headlights. Let's put him out there anyway and see what he does. I mean, there's no way they're doing that. Now, is there a way, as I said, if you really want something to happen, you can talk yourself into it a little more and think someone's more ready than they are? That's certainly a possibility. But as Jon Gruden said, he liked what he saw in the post or in the preseason with him and what he was doing. And we're not at practice. We don't know the development that's going on in practice, but they're just turning the ball over too much. So I don't have a problem with this move. Trubisky can run out of trouble. He's a better athlete. He can move and maybe make some plays on the fly along with mistakes. I have no problem with this move happening right now.
All right, we'll see what happens. You'll see it all on Monday night.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
What a great time of the year this is. Obviously, baseball playoffs in full swing. We'll continue talking about that as we go. Tons of football to get to, and for that we turn our attention to Kirk Herbstreit, who joins us every Wednesday at this time on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And College Game Day will be in Fort Worth this weekend for West Virginia and TCU. And Herbie, it'll be a really big week as Lee Corso will be donning the headgear for the 300th time, which is really something. I mean, in a sports world where there are very few things you can count on, to turn you guys on every Saturday morning and see the coach putting on one of those headgear, that is definitely one of them.
Yeah, it's crazy that it's 300, but it's always, we call it a skit. It's no longer just a headgear. It's like he's up to something, and I think Lee Fitting's behind it as well as the mastermind. They come up with whatever they come up with, and the rest of us try not to know what he's going to do until he does it. But he's 82 years old. He is the man, and we love him to death. And he's our guy, and it's great. Well, I'm sure we'll celebrate that in a unique way this weekend.
It is one of the most fun things to watch, maybe except when you guys are up there, and he's given also with it. It's not just headgear, but there's also like other things with it that can cause bodily harm. and then you kind of have to be careful, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, he'll have guns up there. He'll have live animals. You just never know what he's gonna do. But it's so ironic to think that thing started way back, I think in '96, and it just continues on. And people, you kind of almost know what he's going to do, but you still want to watch him do it, and it's just fun. It kind of sets the tone for the day, and I think people over the years, different generations, have come accustomed to, hey, whose headgear did he put on? Everybody talks about it throughout the day, so very, very cool for that to be a big part of our show.
Yeah, it really, really is. And you guys in Fort Worth this week for 23 West Virginia, 8 TCU. TCU had the big win over Oklahoma State. It's interesting you have a former Florida quarterback at West Virginia, the former A&M, Texas A&M quarterback at TCU now, Will Greer at West Virginia and Kenny Hill at TCU. And quite honestly, West Virginia lost their first game against Virginia Tech, won the next 3. This is it for them, right? This is their chance to get back into this thing. One more loss, they'll be done, but they can pull off this win against an undefeated TCU. They're going to be right back in this thing. What's their best chance to do it?
Yeah, I think Greer's they've got some great athletes around Will Greer, and Dana Holgorsen he's been very consistent with his brand since he's been in Morgantown, with a certain toughness that they play with their defense. They're not intimidated by anybody. They'll get in your face. They throw the ball around. They're playing a really good team. I mean, I think a lot of people weren't really paying much attention to TCU until they upset Oklahoma State, but I think TCU, it's obviously just as big a game and just as big of opportunity for them playing at home against a talented team. And it's an opportunity to continue to take another step in that conference and try to set up bigger showdowns down the road. But it's if you look at the slate of games, it's clearly the game that we should be at. And Chris Fowler and I are actually, and Maria Taylor are actually going to be up in Ann Arbor for Michigan and Michigan State later that night. But that game in Fort Worth will be probably a typical shootout that you can expect to see in the Big 12.
Mike and Herbie with us here, brought to you by Allstate. Make sure you check out the Herbstreit and Fitzsimmons podcast as well. Okay, so this is where I was yesterday. Herbie, I had Booger in here, and we were going through some of this stuff, and it's starting to feel like Alabama and Clemson are really separating themselves from the pack. So we were trying to figure out who else do we really buy into? Who else do we feel like is a legit top-shelf team? So let's run through a couple of them. You mentioned Michigan is the game that you guys have this weekend. In the Big Ten, you've got Michigan unbeaten. You've got Penn State unbeaten. You got Ohio State with their loss, but maybe they are. Who are we buying into as a legit contender in the Big Ten?
But don't forget about Wisconsin.
And excuse me, I forgot them. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin has a chance to be possibly undefeated going into Indianapolis. And now you're 60 minutes away from playing for a chance to get to the playoffs. So, and I think Wisconsin's legit. So I think Wisconsin's in there. I think, I don't know what to make of Ohio State after their performance against Oklahoma at home. People getting excited because they've looked a lot better against inferior competition. But truly, we're not going to know anything about Ohio State and for a couple of weeks until they play Penn State. Then we'll be able to figure it out. And that game's in Columbus. So Ohio State's going to think this is our chance to kind of avenge the loss to OU to show, that we belong up there with the big boys. And Penn State's going to think this is our chance to play Ohio State. This is the team that we beat, and we won the Big Ten championship, and they went to the playoff. This is their chance to kind of avenge that. So I think a lot will be decided on that day. And then with Michigan, with John O'Korn in right now for Wilton State, they're kind of like that team that's just a little bit forgotten in the Big Ten, but very, very talented defense. And I'm anxious to see John O'Korn this weekend against this Sparty defense, because the Spartans are back to playing defense the way you would expect the Mark D'Antonio team. So I don't think it's fair to just, I know the Booger will just throw anything out there and make a statement. I'm one of these guys that, I could throw something out there, but I'd like to see these teams play each other. Otherwise, you're just kind of guessing at this point. In the Big 12, there's TCU and OU. The winner of that game in Oklahoma State, people still think's the player, but I think the winner of the TCU Oklahoma game, I think is going to be the team that will eventually emerge in the Big 12. The SEC. Have you guys watched Georgia the last couple weeks?
That's where I wanted to go, Herbie. I mean, that's a team I look at, and I watched them play. I was in South Bend when they beat Notre Dame by a point. That loss is looking better and better for Notre Dame as Notre Dame is running the ball so well. We'll see what's up with Wimbush and his foot. But Georgia, the speed on defense, that freshman quarterback, what he's doing, the two-headed running attack. Man, stand up and take notice of that team.
Yeah, for real. And Georgia setting up, you imagine if Georgia keeps playing the way they are and they stay healthy, you imagine Georgia, Alabama in the SEC championship game. I mean, that is a clash of the Titans. That would be a huge game. So you have them. Miami, I don't know. Is Miami as good as they looked the other night? Miami could be that team on the other side that could play Clemson in an ACC championship game, and that Miami defense, man, that front four and those linebackers are flying around making plays. So I don't think it's as bad as everybody's saying. I'm just not going down that path. There's just Alabama and Clemson, and there's everybody else. I don't think we're there yet. I know they've looked great, but I think there's 6 or 7 or 8 other teams that are kind of positioning themselves to still be in this discussion of being worthy of being in the Final Four and maybe winning the national title.
I'm saying right now, I think Georgia and Alabama are going to meet in the title game, SEC title game, undefeated, and the question will be, will the loser still get into the top 4?
They both go.
Obviously, a lot of it depends on some of the other teams as well.
Can we just close the loop because we didn't go out west? How about out west? Who are we buying into in a big way out west? Because there's been a lot. Obviously, USC with the big loss this weekend. Washington State. Who are we buying into in a big way out west, Herbie?
I'm buying into Washington. I need to see more of Washington State just because their history is get up and pull off in a big upset, and then the next week lose. So I need to see if they have staying power. And not to mention, they're away from Pullman now for quite a few games. So I think Washington with Chris Peterson, that's a program you just know there's stability there. They run the football. The quarterback makes good decisions. Their defense is very physical. They've replaced a lot of guys in that secondary. And that was the one thing I wanted to see is could they run the ball with the offensive line and could they play defense the way they were a year ago? And so far the answer has been yes. So I think you have to give Washington an edge over everybody else out in the Pac-12 right now.
Once again, College Game Day this weekend in Fort Worth for West Virginia TCU, and then Herbie and company will be doing
real quick.
Yeah.
The dilemma, which you love, you like this kind of stuff, is who's going to be left out. Because if Washington were to continue to win and be out there and they win the Pac-12 championship game, and the Big 12 all of a sudden, they've got some teams. It was with Oklahoma and TCU and Oklahoma State, and we know about the SEC, we know about the Big 10, we know about Clemson and maybe a Miami. Who will be that team that potentially in that conference that could be left out? This could be the first time where, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years ago when TCU and Baylor were in discussion in the first year of the playoff in 2014, and Ohio State ended up going over both of them. That was somewhat of a controversy. But this could be a big year where you have all 5 conferences, Power 5, deserving of their champion being in, and then who will eventually be left out. That's for you, Greeny. You celebrate the baseball, enjoy that part of it.
It's not just me. That's called talk show heaven.
Yes, it
right?
is.
That's called the talk show host's dream scenario. And so, look, man, as we have more time, we'll get into that because you're right.
Sure.
If you wind up with these teams, they've got, I guess that first year, you're right. TCU and Baylor had a really legit gripe. I think a lot of people had a problem with Penn State getting left out last year.
Oh, yeah, it'll be fun to talk about.
Because they want it. We'll have plenty of this as we go. Herbie, thank you. We'll talk to you next week.
Have a great week, guys.
Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, Kirk Herbstreit and Company with another big week.
So here's the irony of one of the things he said, that the game they're going to be at doing game day, West Virginia TCU is on FS1. So as he said, he's going to do the Michigan State game.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a link yesterday. It was the entire game on YouTube. And it's amazing. He just said Michigan State. October 1999, I called the Michigan State game. Somebody sent me the entire game. Do you know who the coach was at Michigan State?
Was it Nick Saban?
Nick Saban. You know who the quarterback was at Michigan?
Don't tell me.
Tom Brady.
Oh, Brady.
It was Brady. I called that game. That was I don't know why the guy sent it to me, and I just started watching it.
It's a pretty good thing to have gotten.
Wow, that's pretty. And then he just mentioned. So it just
how good was
again.
Brady?
Oh, Brady was. I mean, it's interesting. What I put up, I had keys for both quarterbacks, and what I put up for him was accuracy. You know, all the things you see now that's made him the greatest quarterback of all time as his strength. I had him up there, and the weakness I had mobility. So I mean,
you were right.
Yeah.
I mean, you were right all the way around.
It was Too Far Tuesday yesterday on Twitter. Did you and Booger give away a bobblehead?
We did not give away a bobblehead.
Come on.
We did. No, I don't want to do that without you. I mean, I need your guidance. But we do have bobbleheads obviously today, and we will. And we did have a lot of Too Far Tuesday stuff
good.
yesterday as well. Craig Hayden tweets at us, I hate the wild card one and done format. If you play 162 games to get in, you ought to get a 3-game series and 1 home game. Here's the problem with that is it's not about elongating the postseason. I would actually be in favor of shortening the regular season and elongating the postseason in one sport and one sport only, and baseball is that sport. The problem is, and if you were with us earlier, you heard Manfred said it yesterday with Waddle and Sylvia in Chicago. Yeah. The home team, so let's say you're Indians right now, they don't want to wait longer to play.
Right.
They don't want an extra, so many times in recent years, how many times have we seen these elongated waits between the end of the CS and the beginning of the World Series? And usually that's a negative. Usually the team that sits around and waits longer and gets cold, it works against them. If you gave the Indians the choice of taking, let's call it 2 days off to set their pitching up and then go, or get a full week off, they would take the 2 days.
Take 2 days. I'm with you.
So you would be doing the opposite of what you want to do. You'd be diminishing the advantage. So how do you do this? The only way to do it would be to add one more team to the playoff mix, make it 6 in each league, and then have everyone actually play a first series.
Yeah, first series, yeah.
And give the division winners some enormous advantage. advantage.
Right.
How would you do that? Maybe they only have to win 2 games and the other team has to win 3. Something like that, sort of a modification, if you will, of the Booger rules. And by the way, when we mentioned that this was Booger's idea, I immediately got a bunch of tweets saying that in some of the Asian baseball leagues, they do it that way.
Oh, they do?
Yes. I can't, maybe, Hembo, you can look into that. But I got a bunch of notes saying they do that because I do kind of like
I don't mind
idea.
that at all. I really don't. And again, Booger's, to use Minnesota and the Yankees as an example, his way would have been Minnesota would have had to win twice and New York once. To move on. So it would have ended last night because the Yankees won, but if Minnesota won, they'd play one more game today where it would be winner take all.
So if you wanted to add one more, just for the sake of this discussion, all right, so in the American League, you would have the Astros, the Red Sox, and the Indians would have home field advantage. Then you would do like a snake draft. You would then take the next 3 teams in order. Instead of 2 wild cards, 3. They would play, worst against best and so on. And you would give the advantage to the home team. So in this case, you would have had the Royals and Rays and Angels all
yes,
tied.
all tied, yeah.
Somehow that's another problem.
That's another thing. Now you're
that.
playing a game to break that, and then you're pushing things even more.
But you couldn't do this without shortening the regular season. You would just be adding a layer of playoffs, which most sports have done, and you could live with it if you shortened the regular season. Would you do that? If you were the king of the world, and I said right now you can make that decision, you can add another layer of playoffs and shorten the regular season, would you do it?
To shorten to 154, to shorten 8 games, I would do it in a heartbeat. And I just saw the note up there. There have actually been more seasons of 154 games than 162 games. Yeah. I would go 8 games for sure.
How close is that to being even at this point? It's got to be getting close.
1961, I believe.
61? So that's from here now. That's 50 something years.
6 years?
Yeah. And how many years before that? So they've been playing the game for 130
Bottom line is
years.
You'd have to tell the owners they're not losing any money. Okay.
Well, I think in some ways they might make more money with an extra level of playoffs.
Let's just say that's the starting point.
Right.
Make sure you're not losing money. Okay, you're not losing money. Okay, go. Let's throw out some options.
I don't think it's a terrible idea. We'll bounce it off David Ross. He'll join us in studio in our next hour. Stay there. Busy day. Mike and Mike.